we're getting a little bit closer to getting this thing going. Ran down to Advance, got some NGK spark plugs for it. I usually run the short header plugs by Excel, but I don't think it was really needed. I think now that I've figured out my plug wire routing better, these standard length NGKs should work fine, and that's what we started out in when we first got the thing running. The motor and transmission's in. I do not have the shifter cable hooked up, and I don't have the headers on yet, but the everything else is pretty much good to go. Got the fuel pump on it last night. Ended up having to make a gasket for the plate. The plate that mounts to the block, and then your fuel pump mounts to it. Apparently I didn't have that gasket, but I had a sheet of the Mr. Gasket, or no, Felpro gasket material. That was a kind of a pain in the ass to cut out with an X-Acto knife, but I had punches for the holes, so it wasn't too bad. Anyway, I got everything done. I had to neck down my heater, one of my heater hoses, because apparently this really short 90-degree intake heater hose fitting that I had to have only came with a 5/8 nipple, and I have a 3/4 inch hose off of that side of the heater core, which is weird because for years they made heater cores that were 3/4 in, 5/8 out, which caused a little bit of a restriction to hold the water in your heater core a little bit longer to help you get better heat. Well, this one, it's hard to see, but the lines are reversed. It's normally your 3/4 inch used to be on the bottom of a heater core, because you basically would fill your heater core from the bottom to the top and then have a 5/8 outlet that would slightly restrict the flow to make your heater core work better. Well, apparently this is the opposite. So we have a 1/2 inch pressure line, because the bottom hose there is the one that hooks up to my outlet over here on the water pump, and then it returns back to the intake. But I had to buy one of those reducers to go from a 3/4 hose down to a 5/8. And if you'll notice, I do not have it tightened, because it's a little trick I use when I start filling the engine with coolant. I'll pull that hose off, and as soon as I can burp air out of there and get coolant out of that heater hose fitting, it almost guarantees me that I'm not going to have any bubbles or any hot issues while I'm burping the system. Because if you let that air out of that front of that intake, because it's normally one of the highest points on the engine, you can pull that hose off, fill your cooling system, and when it starts to come out of there, or if you can even see it in the nipple, then you put your hose on, tighten it down, and go from there. I went ahead and just used my cordless drill with the priming tool just to run the oil, because remember, this isn't a brand new engine. It's already been run, it's full of oil, lifters have oil in them. But with all the work I have done with the oil filter relocation lines and rocker arms and all that, I just went ahead and pumped it back up with that. And I'm going to do it again probably when my daughter gets home, so that way she can sit in there and tell me what kind of pressure I'm getting, because it used to prime up to damn near 70 pounds or so just with a drill. So anyway, this header is in the chassis, but it's not bolted up yet, which I don't foresee any major problems with that. But being that you have to reach around this steering shaft, it's always a pain in the neck, you know, because I mean, we're looking at, this is your angle for that number 7 cylinder, putting them stupid bolts in. So anyway, we're getting closer to getting it fired up. Everything looks pretty good up here on the engine, transmission, engine mounts are good, tight. Oil filter lines, oil filters on. Amazingly, the oil's a little above full, which I wasn't expecting that since I had to pull those oil lines off. I thought I'd lose a half a quart, but apparently not. That or I overfilled it last time. I just got to top off the transmission with fluid once I get it running and go from there. If you'll notice back here, I use braided AN line for my oil pressure line because I have had luck. I've had actually two separate vehicles that snapped off the nylon tubing, and my race car, my old 71 Pontiac Ventura, it eventually ended up vibrating and snapping off one of the copper lines, which I didn't even know you could do. So my policy changed, and I run braided AN lines and fittings on all my oil pressure gauges and everything because I am sick of cleaning up messes. So anyway, there it is. We got her close. Once we get a little bit more work done on these headers, get my distributor dropped in, carburetor on, we will throw that front clip back on, and we'll be in business to fire this thing up. Keep in touch, keep watching.